entitled, "San Francisco, You're Together." On the joyous occasion of the 6th annual Two for Pride March and Festival, take a moment to reflect on the pain of the singleton who cannot experience this joy or even understand it. His is the legacy of hundreds of thousands of years of solitary confinement. He is cleft from the world, from his brethren, and from himself. This pain is not his alone. It is yours as well, for it is not enough to be born conjoined. Indeed, your painfully partial merger is the most visible outward sign we have been given of the rift in the heart of things. Downer? Nay, say rather a sign that we are finally on the move toward wholeness. The conjoined twin is a traffic sign on the highway of life. What does that sign say? It says, merge. Twofers, yours is a sacred wound. You have been deprived of the picayune atomic integrity of the singleton in order to achieve a new higher integrity. The truly together will undergo a convulsive change or focus and reemerge as a new one, who is to an ordinary singleton as condensed soup to a clear broth. These will become the husbandmen of our divided world, guiding the factious singleton gently but firmly toward union. To get together, the superficial boundaries of the self must be broken down. Twofers, you have the glorious privilege of hosting in one body two souls. Yet all too often these souls parcel up their joint experience, impoverishing both. Our Western notion of self and the language it has given rise to is to blame. Every time you open your mouth to say I, you thrust a lance in the heart of your twin. Understand that your identity is only the scar tissue left by the ancient wound of being severed from the whole. From I, we get to we. From we to that plenary in which self and world are united in bliss, I squared. Only then may you truthfully say you are together. Rid of Blanche. Funny. At the time, I would have been justified in thinking I already was. One day, Blanche shut up. When I looked right, she no longer looked left, neither to see what I was plotting, nor to give me a chill of similitude. Her eyes closed, and she fell into a long, long sleep. Sometimes, stirred by a dream she was dreaming, my finger twitched, my toe tapped. Sometimes while checking the date on a yogurt container or knotting a shoelace, I felt an incongruous rush of adrenaline. Aside from these tiny reminders, our body was mine. It grew up. I grew up. And Blanche was left behind, like a vacation puppy, too dumb to bark after the shrinking license plate and the desperate faces tinged with aquamarine behind the glass. My life really began then. I don't remember much of what came before, and what I do remember lacks heft. My memories are a clutch of images as unconvincing as those faux antique photographic portraits tourists could pose for back in my hometown of Too Bad, Nevada, their flip-flops hidden under the hoop skirt. I don't mind. I prefer the present tense. But it turns out that what you don't know can hurt you. In disentangling two pieces of string, one looks for the ends. If I'm having trouble this late date telling the two of us apart, the obvious solution is to go back to the beginning. The beginning is called misconceptions. She should have thought twice. Mama wanted to give a baby to her girlfriend Max as a tribute to Max's almost perfect masculinity. A surprise. It is possible that this explanation was conceived after the fact. The fact was conceived on the bus from Hollywood, where Mama's big break had just fallen through. She'd fired her agent in a fit of pique and was going back to New York, where they loved her. They being the regulars at a bohemian nightclub, where she did a theatrical number that combined song and dance with dramatic monologue. Men wet their hankies when she did the sad song, and ladies in top hats licked their lips and sent her flowers. Mama peevishly plucked greasy bits out of a bag of donuts. Across the aisle sat my father, with sandwiches and soda and a dollhouse in his lap. A man with a dollhouse. He looked like a giant. He hadn't bought a ticket for the house, so he only slowly and with much looking around decided it was safe to move it off his lap to the seat next to him. He quickly took it on his knees again when the driver turned to show his long, sad, dung-colored mustache. Somewhere between Hollywood and Agua Sucio, Mama asked to touch the door with working handles, the chimney with the flue that opened, the toilet with its tank and little chain. Maybe their hands met like two beasts in the bedroom. Who can resist a dollhouse? With working hinges? Tiny mahogany doors with tiny brass latches? A miniature book with only 4 pages? The dollhouse had 2 halves that swung open to reveal the rooms inside. 2 dolls could be side by side in a room, and the next moment at opposite ends of the house. How marvelous. The furniture was elegant, if higgledy-piggledy. The sofa stuck sideways in the stairwell had tasseled throw cushions. Mama stuck the tip of her baby finger in a ceramic potty with painted blue ducks in the bowl, felt warmth flood her cheeks. There was a vagrant on the side of the road, flagging the bus, her greasy black walnut-colored hair sticking out in blades from under an unseasonably woolly hat. Improbably, the driver stopped for her. Did he know her? And she made her way down the aisle, accidentally on purpose banging a few shoulders with her ratty knapsack, sitting down in the aisle seat next to Mama, who is not yet anyone's Mama. They looked down at their respective laps. On the one hand, we have the crisp yellow dress. On the other, the dingy jeans going to threads in the scuffed patches, a 3-cornered tear disclosing a patch of surprisingly innocent leg, clean, slightly downy. The vagrant reached across the aisle and knocked whimsically at the tiny front door of the dollhouse. "Knock, knock," she said. Papa flinched. "Knock, knock," I said. He cleared his throat. "Who's there?" "Interrupting cow." "Moo!" shouted the vagrant and laughed loudly. Mama found herself sharing a pained look with Papa. She falls asleep. I'm skipping ahead. And sometime in the night, she awoke and saw the dollhouse's black silhouette against the almost black, maybe deep purple windows. Then with a start, she caught a glint from Papa's eyes and realized he was looking at her. I suppose it must have happened then. But what about the tramp who's in the way where I've placed her, even if, as one can easily imagine, she's drooped and slid down in the seat and is now scarcely more than a bundle of rags, over which Mama can easily clamber, holding onto the back of her seat and the seat in front, in order to get to Papa. Our conception was a deadline she had to meet. In retrospect, we can say that it was now, tonight, on the rocking bus, or never, despite the inconvenience and even unlikelihood of it. What luck that Mama, a Brooklyn girl and a bohemian, had never been shy, least of all now, was easy in the dark, as she directed him with signs and whispers to move the dollhouse onto the seat beside him. Had he really held it on his lap all night, dozing with an empty seat beside him? Well, yes. It's an heirloom, and he's a punctilious man, and what's one night of sleep? He liked the forked silhouettes of the saguaro cacti against the sky and the orchestra of sleepers around him. But now, without hesitation, he did what the lady asked. Mama took the place of the dollhouse in his lap, looking back over his head into the resonant interior of the bus. The idea that some of the dark forms back there might be watching quickened her breath. Papa closed his eyes and felt her collarbone warm and hard against his lips. He dared to kiss it, then ducked his head to reach the warm hollow under it, concentrating on this and not the operation Mama was performing blind on his belt buckle, though he did raise his hips when she tugged down on his trousers. Her fingers slipped on the elastic of his boxers, which snapped smartly against his erect cock. He sucked in his breath, felt her dress softly cleave to his mouth. They both froze, listening. Snores, the creaking of the bus. It occurred to him that she would go back to her seat now, and that this might be a relief. But she gave him an intimate, apologetic pat, drew his boxers carefully down, shuffled forward, and fit herself over him, one knee jammed against the metal joint of an armrest. Deep in her throat, he heard a tiny, unself-conscious grunt. Suddenly, he was happy. He bit her dress, grinning. Mama didn't see this. She didn't think about much as she moved, smiling calmly into the darkness. She felt invisible, impossible, free. She could do anything, be anyone.